Is there an effective way of multitasking? There was a nugget there that we didn't have time to speak during our conversation that I want to bring today here that has to do with multitasking.
Expanding possibilities, the mindset zone.
I'm your host, Ana Melikian, and this podcast is brought to you by my company, Naze Coaching. Our mission is to support individuals and organizations to increase their impact while avoiding burnout. We do this through speaking, training, and coaching. For more information, visit mindset.zone. Yes, instead of .com, it's .zone. There you can access all the episode notes, links, and other amazing resources, all at mindset.zone. Welcome to this solo episode of the Mindset Zone. And today I want to take us in a reflection journey about an important concept. Is there an effective way of multitasking? In one of my previous episodes, I had the pleasure of interviewing Nir Eyal, the author of the book Indistractable, and I really recommend that you listen to our conversation. We went deep into his book Indistractable, into the mindset behind distraction and being indistractable. And when I was preparing the interview and reading the book, I really love how Nir goes beyond the surface and makes me think. And there was a nugget there that we didn't have time to speak during our conversation that I want to bring today here that has to do with multitasking. And by the way, yes, an article, a short article about this that I will put in the show notes that will give you the gist that we are going to be speaking here today. I don't know how familiar you are with the productivity world, but multitasking is like, oh, you should not multitasking. Multitasking is bad. It's a lot of the guidelines how to show how not productive or not effective is multitasking. And I speak about this in many of my trainings when I work with from entrepreneurs to professionals. I even have an experiential exercise that I do to show how not effective is multitasking. And I'm going to guide you through this experiential exercise. Please, if you are driving, do this later when you are in a safe place. Just be patient for the next 2 minutes. But if you are in a place safe and they have something that you can write with, a little piece of paper, and something that you can measure the time, like you can use your mobile phone in any of the mobile phones now. If you go to your clock app, especially in the iPhone, I'm not sure exactly in the Android, but they will have a chronometer that you can use in the iPhone. If you go to the clock, that is where you put the alarms and so forth, you also have the stopwatch there. You just need something to, or just look to your watch and calculate more or less how many seconds you have to be able to measure seconds. So once you have this, just write in a piece of paper in a line. So we are doing 5 columns, 5 names. I'm going to give you an example of names. You can do other names of people. The important thing is that the names should be different number of letters. So you can write Morgan. So in one line with space below to do the exercise. So you write, imagine 5 columns, and in the top, in the heading of the columns, you have Morgan, Jeremy, Cassie, Zina, Mitchell, and Andrew. I repeat, Morgan, Jeremy, Cassie, Zina, Mitchell, Andrew. You can use other names and don't worry about the spelling. You just have to have a table with in the heading of that table 5 names. Okay. So now is when you take your chronometer, anything to measure the time, so it can be a stopwatch, and you start, or you see the time, the start, and the first part of the exercise is very simple. You are going just to copy the names and measure how long it takes to copy the names with an handwriting that another person can read. Okay? So you can start, and I'm going to be doing this here live too. Just let's copy the names and see how long it takes us to copy the names in an handwriting that another person can read. Let's start. It depends of people, but usually we can do this in 30 seconds or less, usually less than 30 seconds. So you can go ahead, finish, check the time, and write that number down. For me was 24 seconds. Okay? Now you are ready to the second part of this exercise. You are going to copy the same names as before, but in a different way. You are going to write the first letter of the first name, then move to the second name and write the first letter, move to the third name. So first letter of the first name is, in this case, M, then go to the second column and there will be J, and then C from Cassie. So the first letter of all the names first, then you come back to the first column and you go to the second letter of every name, and then after you have done all the second letters, you come to the first column and you write the third letter. Okay? And you do this, and that you have to measure how long it is. I will make sure that in the show notes you will have also the explanation for this and where I learned this exercise. This was in a productivity book on emailing. And that was really a short but powerful book. So I will put the reference there. So let's reset. I'm resetting here my stopwatch, and I'm going to do it here with you. Most people will be able to do this, but guess what? It takes longer. For me, it took me 57 seconds, so the double, more than the double that the first one, and my handwriting is worse in the second one. And I think in my case, I'm dyslexic, so it's really tough for my brain to do this. We have to rethink which letter we are. Oh, there are names that are shorter, there are names that are longer. And that switching from one task to the next takes time. takes time to see where I was before, what I need to do now, takes time. And that is one of the big issues when we are multitasking in our work, in our day-to-day. That time that takes us to move from one task to the next. We answer an email, and then we go back to the project, and then another email notification pops in, and you go back and you have to see where, and then you go back to the project and you have to see where we were. All that uses a lot of time and makes very not effective multitasking. And this is absolutely true, and Nir doesn't, in his book Indistractable, doesn't deny that. He even supports that we have to be indistractable. Yet, he calls the attention that if we peel a layer on this of the multitasking, maybe there is an effective way of multitasking when we use different channels. And what does he mean by that? Yes, this kind of experiential exercise that I just did, it's really, I think, powerful way to show that sometimes the best thing is to focus in a project to a certain amount of time, get it done before we move, we transition, we switch to another thing. Great. But probably you have experience in doing things that you are doing two things at once and is more effective. This is called the Cross Modal Attention, that allows our brain to place a certain mental process on autopilot while we think about other things. And this is something that Nir Eyal, in the article that I'm going to put in the show notes, speaks about. And when I was initially reading the book and he spoke about this, and then rereading the article, I absolutely have examples of this. For instance, I love traveling, but I do not like to pack, and can get me really stressed sometimes, the packing. One solution that I found was put my Spotify playlist of some music that I like, and while I'm listening to this music, that is in autopilot listening to the music, I can pack and feel more relaxed and be an enjoyable process. Or another example, I usually listen to the nightly news while I'm cooking dinner. I can cook dinner in autopilot, and I like to be listening to the news. So there are two levels here. One is I'm listening, in this case of the news, my attention is there, and I'm doing the cooking mostly in autopilot. In the case of the packing, I'm almost the autopilot is the listening of the music. It's there in the background and I'm enjoying it, and I'm more focused on the packing. So there are different ways of doing this. And I know that if you are into mindfulness, you can argue that, you could use those moments to create a mindfulness experience and to practice mindfulness. And it's absolutely true. But sometimes it's good to do this, and we can be effective doing this. And like in the case for me of packing, creates an extra motivation and less stress for me to do it this way. And another thing, another angle that Nir speaks is that sometimes you even can create a bind. For instance, there is an audiobook that you really are into reading or listening to. You are really into, or podcast that you really like, the Mindset Zone. You really want to listen to the episode. So you can make the thing that only when I'm doing X, I will listen to this. For instance, I'm going to listen to this audiobook when I'm going to the gym or when I'm in the treadmill. So you associate it with something that you want to do, and that gives you more motivation to do that. For instance, the exercise. So think about this. And Nir calls this the multi-channel multitasking, because remember, you have to find these a cross modal attention. One thing can be in autopilot, and then you can pay more attention to the other thing. It's an effective way of multitasking when we understand how our brain works. So think about that in your life. How can you apply this in a way that benefits you? And if you are curious about learning more ways of becoming indistractable, I really advise you to read Nir Eyal book or listen to the audio book in the audio form. That is also great, maybe while in the gym or walking. And of course, I always appreciate your input about these episodes of the Mindset Zone. You can reach me at Ana, A-N-A, at mindset.zone with any comments about what you are listening here. Thank you so much for your time and attention today, even if you were multitasking with something else.
Expanding possibilities, the Mindset Zone.
Thank you for listening, and remember to follow this podcast. And if you're listening in Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review. That really helps us spread the word about the Mindset Zone. Also visit mindset.zone. Yes, instead of .com is .zone. There you can find amazing resources and more information about my speaking and how I support purpose-driven individuals and organizations increase their impact while preventing burnout. As always, I'm so grateful you are here. Expand what's possible for you, for the ones around you, for the world.